We're live, people. Hope you're having a great day. There's good days, and sometimes we have bad days. But this is a good day, guys. I don't know if you're listening to the news, where you're getting your news from. I keep telling you, go over to Real America's Voice and be listening to Steve Bannon every single day, because you're not going to hear that type of news in the mainstream media. In fact, the mainstream media would have you believe there's no election fraud, because people keep sending out things like there's no election fraud. And yeah, there is. Like I told you the other day, I get people on the phone who saw the election fraud, that were pushed really far back, weren't able to observe ballots, all happening in Detroit. But today on Steve Bannon's show, he had the president's lawyer, former mayor of New York City, Rudy Giuliani. And so Giuliani's on there, and he's been, finally wondering what's happening. I got comments. Say hi in the comments. It's so cool. I can go both live. I have StreamYard, so I'm live on Facebook and on YouTube. So, hey, boom. Hi, everybody. So anyways, he's on there. He's got 1,000 sworn affidavits. So 1,000 real people. Plus, we have a whistleblower from Dominion, the technology firm that is doing all the voting software in all of these key swing states, that is clearly corrupted, glitches. I don't know when we stop calling it glitches and just election fraud. I'm not sure when that happens, maybe soon. But anyways, and there's a woman from Dominion as well, which can we also talk about? Like, what a weird name, Dominion, of all the things, like for all my Christians that watch, that's like a really biblical term, right? Like in Genesis, we talk about, and like, take dominion over the fish and over the sea, and all the animals. So I always think it's weird, like when the devil tries to do something and he's not original or creative, he just kind of pulls like terms that God would use. But I'm telling you, the media would have you believe that there's no election fraud. Like, I see articles people send me like, there's no election fraud. And I'm really genuinely concerned. It is like we are living through one of the largest, if not the largest, disinformation campaign of our lifetime, and is really honestly setting the entire country up for civil war, in my opinion, by calling this election for Biden, buying into and pushing this narrative of the office of president-elect, which is just a completely made-up office. It just reminds me of actual The Office with Dwight Schrute, who's like the assistant to the regional manager. It's just like a made-up title. I'm not sure why the media pushes that narrative, but I really believe it's leading our country down not a very good path, right? When they've called it, and North Carolina just came into President Trump's column. Alaska finally came in. Arizona is inching along every single day. That margin has narrowed down to 12,000 votes, and I believe there's still about 50 to 60,000 from Maricopa County that need to be counted. Why it takes so long to count? I feel like they must be counting ballots for like 30 minutes a day. Maybe there's like one person who's assigned to it, and they're like manually going through it one at a time. I don't understand why it's taking so long. I really don't. But it is inching along every day, just a little bit more we're getting. And then we also heard that Georgia is a hand recount that's going to be taking place, which is only going to boast in President Trump's favor. And we'll also get to see from there, do we have issues with the Dominion software? I watched today, it wasn't on Bannon, but it was on whatever the show is after that. They had a Google expert on there talking about the Dominion software, that you could run multiple ballots through it and it'll just keep counting ballots. Of course, the glitch that we all know about, where the votes was flipped from Trump to Biden. And then when they uploaded something, they're not supposed to be connected to the internet, but it did an update, and that's what caused the glitch. So that has been used in multiple elections around the country. So it'd be interesting to see if there's widespread voter fraud happening there. And so anyways, I'm praying for things like that. I'm praying that if it is something with the Dominion software that is so evident, because I'm very concerned about how the leftists are going to react to this, because a lot of people, low information voters, they've already believing the narrative, the president's a misogynist, racist, homophobic, bigot. And they're already pushing. This is like the devil always accuses you of the things he's doing, right? You ever been in a situation like that where you're with somebody and or you work for somebody, or you're in some sort of, relationship where like they're accusing you of the thing that they're doing. And that's what we're watching happen. And so they're accusing President Trump of stealing the election. Meanwhile, in Pennsylvania And Michigan, we have ballots by the pallet and by the pound coming in, unmarked vehicles, out of state vehicles being dropped off in the middle of the night. And so, anyways, I think it's very clear that the elections, there's an attempt to steal the election. I think any rational thinking person says, okay, at 10:30 Central Standard, 11:30, they stopped counting. Trump was ahead by hundreds of thousands of votes in places like Pennsylvania. And then all of the sudden, and I think they wish they would have stopped it earlier, because now all of a sudden they're going to make up hundreds of thousands of votes. And then that's when mistakes happen. And so you have people dropping off ballots at 3, 4 in the morning, and they're just showing up with just Biden on it, 100% Biden, nothing down ticket. Those are fraudulent ballots. And so I really believe, especially in places like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, there's going to be real questions about the integrity of where these ballots came from. So I think we'll be seeing a lot that get thrown out. And that's going to really make the left lose their mind. And so it doesn't matter what evidence says. It doesn't matter that it's really evident that they're just going to lose their mind. So we have to be ready for that. And I think that we need to be telling people about this, because I don't want it to catch people off guard. I think at that time, now more than ever, like what we're going through and enduring the contradiction right now is nothing compared to what's coming. So the minute that those 100,000 ballots get thrown out in Pennsylvania, Arizona comes in, Georgia comes in after, they do their recounts and their hand counts, it's going to be insane. I mean, the militant arm of the left is just really, it's going to go after I believe different Trump supporters, cities, small businesses. It's going to be crazy. And right now it sounds like, oh, well, you sound crazy for saying that, Mercedes, and people who think it's a big joke right now, especially on the left, who think it's a big joke. It's going to be really nuts, like 2 or 3 weeks from now. When this makes its way to the Supreme Court and it gets dealt with, rightfully so. And so I hope that there's Christians who are awake and get it. And then there are Christians who I really just think are asleep. And then there's some who are really just falling into false doctrine, bad teaching, a redefinition of sin that I think is really happening. It's things within it's just those Christians who message you. It's like, oh, well, abortion, who am I to say like abortion's wrong as a Christian? I'm like, no, you're the one who should be saying it. You are the one that should be saying it and saying that loudly. And they come under, I think they're under a spirit, a deceiving spirit. I mean, killing a child in the place that should be safest is wrong. And there's plenty of scripture that says, I knit you in your mother's womb. We talked about this the other day, that, the first person acknowledged Jesus was a baby in the womb. So babies in the womb get it. They're alive. They're real. It's not like it was back in Roe versus Wade. We couldn't do like a 3D ultrasound. Man, it looks like a person, because it is a person. And so, so things like that, or even with LGBT. I mean, I love, there's plenty of people out there within that community that are awesome people that love President Trump. But, sin is sin, and we can't redefine sin, just like sleeping with somebody outside of marriage is sin. If you're not married and you're having sex with somebody, just like adultery is sin, just like lying and stealing is sin. Sin is sin. We have to call sin what it is, because it makes the gospel that much more great, right? It's undeserved. So it's like forgiveness, and the gospel, the good news of the gospel is that we've all been forgiven of our sin. And so anyways, but you can't have good news if you don't have bad news, right? So you can't like, hey, you've been forgiven all this. So anyways, I think within culture, we're also up against this feeling and teaching of a redefinition of what sin is. And so we have to call sin sin. Anyways, I'm going to get off that soapbox because I could go on that for a while. The other thing I want to tell you about, other than the great election news that we have happening, and that we need to be, giving everybody a heads up ahead of time that, it's going to be really like, I don't know. My concern is we really need to be praying into it, because I don't want it to get to like purge level, because the left will lose their mind. The left is unstable. And it's not like the 70 million Republicans, conservatives who say, well, we're going to fight this legally. We think that there's things that are wrong with this election. We have real questions about election integrity. We want to look at it. And then as things are exposed and it goes through the legal system, that's how we deal with stuff. There's no conservative riots. We're not like going to Target and burning it to the ground. We're saying, no, we're going to go take this illegal route. Well, the left doesn't think that way. They don't operate that way. And so, like I said, we have to warn people, get ready. The other thing I want to talk about is today is the anniversary of the Mayflower Compact. And so I don't want to be this person, but I'm going to be this person because technically today is not the anniversary of the Mayflower Compact. And the reason is it was signed, like if you go read it. Okay, so the reason, like, let's just back up a little bit. Why is the Mayflower Compact really great? And why do we need to know about it as Christians and be tuned into it? Because today, we'll go with it. Today is the anniversary of the Mayflower Compact, and it's 400 years old. 400 years old. So what is the Mayflower Compact? All right, Mayflower Compact was when the Pilgrims came over in the boat. We'll go this way across the screen. Came over in the boat. And half of them were religious separatists, and half of them were basically entrepreneurs that didn't really kind of know the Lord. I guess back then, like everybody should kind of know the Lord, but they weren't the Pilgrims. They weren't the separatists. So they came over, but here's the deal. They got blown off course. They went way far off course. They were supposed to go to Virginia, 500 miles north. They ended up in Plymouth. And so before they get off the boat, there's this issue, right? So they were sent over by like some like Virginia Adventure Company or something like that. I forget it. It's in the book. Go read the book. It's in the book. I might pull it up and show it to you because I don't want to do like drunk history version. But they end up over there, and it's like they were financed by this group. And so they get there, and like the half that are like the entrepreneurs, craftsmen, tradesmen are like, well, we don't want to submit to anybody. We want to do our own thing. We don't owe these people any money. We're just going to settle here, and that's what we're going to do. And then the Pilgrims were like, well, that's not going to work. You know, like we're going to definitely need to have some sort of law and order. You can't just like, do whatever you want. We're going to have rules if we're going to create a new, community and survive. And so they created the Mayflower Compact, which was something called a civil body politic, which basically means if you keep all of the rules, you will be represented in society. You have a say, you can vote on different things we want to do, but you have to keep the rules, okay? So that's kind of like the gist of the Mayflower Compact. And why it's such a big deal is because it's really the first time in the New World, the idea of like representation within government happens. And so it's just, everybody looks at it as like, oh, it's the modern day seed of democracy that was planted in the soil of America. And so a lot of people look at it as like a super historic day. And the 11th is the day they signed it. However, they signed it under the Julian calendar. We are under the Gregorian calendar. And so the difference is basically the Julian calendar they used a long time ago. They didn't have leap years. And so like, boop, 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 if you do the math, it ends up being 10 days off. So if you really want to celebrate it, and the real day, anniversary day, would technically be November 21st. So 10 days from today. Now, I don't want to be that person because I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, today's the day, and I think we should celebrate it. However, I just want to bring it up because I think we're going into probably a week and a half, 2 weeks of just craziness. So the minute the Supreme Court comes in, right, and starts calling these ballots, it's going to be an issue, and people are going to lose their mind, and it's going to be like Law and Order. It's just going to be like, it's going to be crazy. And so that's why I'm saying I think that's something we should look at. We should pray into it because the technical renewal day would be November 21st. But I want to read one thing to you just before we kind of like transition. And this is from the book. So, and I do want to say too, the 400-year covenant, this was really revealed. I believe angels revealed it to me when I was in Lance's library helping write this book with him. And I mean, I remember running in and being like, Lance, look at this. Oh my gosh, it's a 400-year renewal. Nobody's talking about it. Da, 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 da. And it was such a big deal. And because there's just like, I think there's like at least 3 revelation angels that like hang out in Lance's library. And I know this sounds crazy, but you just sit out there and it's just like all of a sudden you're like trying to work. And then it's like, hey, check this out. And you're like, what? And you're like, hey, check this out. It's so cool. And then it's like this rabbit trail hunt of stuff. And so I ended up down this rabbit trail on the 400-year covenant with the Mayflower Compact. And so that is in the book, and it's so powerful. And so here's the story, right? 102, 500 miles, 102 people get on the boat, 500 miles off course. But I want to read this one or two things to you, okay? So really interesting about the Mayflower Compact. At the very beginning, it says, "In the name of God, we whose names are underwritten, having undertaken for the glory of God and the advancement of the Christian faith, do by these presents solemnly and mutually in the presence of God and one another covenant and combine ourselves together into a civil body politic for our better ordering and preservation and the furtherance of the ends aforesaid." So I just want to point out too, this whole idea that, oh, America's not a Christian nation, and like the brainwashing that the school system tries to put people through is a bunch of malarkey. Because you can see right here, like I said, like the seed of modern day democracy was undertaken for the glory of God, the whole journey, and for the advancement of Christian faith. So don't believe the lies. It's a bunch of hooey. So the other thing that I want to read to you is Governor Calvin Coolidge. So at the 300th anniversary, 100 years before, right? 100 years from, like, technically it would be the 21st of this month. Governor Calvin Coolidge at the time would be our future president. He had this to say about the Mayflower Compact. And to me, it is like so powerful. Okay, so let's listen to it. And here we go. "The compact which they signed was an event of greatest importance. It was the foundation of liberty based on law and order, and that tradition has been steadily upheld. They drew up a form of government which has been designated as the first real constitution of modern times. It was democratic, an acknowledgement of liberty under law and order, and the giving of each person the right to participate in the government, while they promised to be obedient to the laws. But the really wonderful thing was that they had the power and strength of character to abide by it and live by it from that day to this. Some governments are better than others, but any form of government is better than anarchy, and any attempt to tear down government is an attempt to wreck civilization." That last paragraph, to me, is a summary of where we are as a nation. And the left would have you believe that anarchy is true freedom. That's what they always want to sell to you, that anarchy is freedom, and it's not. And what we know in Christ, right? Christ says, "I came not to abolish the law, but to fulfill it." And that we know that freedom, true freedom, comes from Christ who's fulfilled the law. So law and order is essential for liberty to live and move and breathe. And that one line that he has there that says, "But the really wonderful thing was that they had the power and the strength of character to abide by it and live by it from this day to that." And so that's why I think we're up for renewal, okay? That is why the Mayflower Compact is so important in a spiritual sense, is because do we as Americans, both left and right, have the strength of character to abide by law and order? Are we able to do that? And that is what's at war. That is what, like, the spirits, we don't wage against, flesh and blood. We don't wage war against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers of the air. Those spirits that motivate people to just destroy and tear down and break laws, that is not of God. And what we have to ask, whether you're on the left or the right, is, do you have the strength of character to abide by the law and order that's been established in the land? And this is a covenant renewal. This idea of a civil body politic, the seed of democracy, that is what's up for renewal. And so whether you're praying into it today on November 11th, which is when they signed it, it says November 11th in the actual document, but the actual date is the 21st. So that is the real anniversary of it. And so as we go into what I believe is this election begins to get flipped and correctly called, and unfortunately this idea of flipped, because the media has called it way, way, way prematurely. And as the recounts continue, I think that we're going to begin to see the manifestation of spirits motivating people, stirring them up against law and order. And so please pray into that between now and the 21st. I think that there's a lot ahead of us. And I want, as a nation, collectively as believers to come alongside and say, Lord, we want law and order, that we will abide by this. And Lord, we thank you for the foundation of America and that it was founded by Christians, and democracy was founded by Christians, and the fate of America and liberty and freedom will thrive in the midst of law and order. And so anyways, I hope that that blesses you today. This is today's update, and I think you're going to love it. And like I said, it's a good day. We got recounts happening. We have audits happening. We have lawsuits happening. And, don't believe the media narrative. Like I said, make sure you're getting good news. Newsmax is pretty good, but I really enjoy Real America's Voice, Bannon in the War Room, Raheem, Jack Maxey. Those guys are awesome. And then even some of the other shows on during the day over there, just super informative. So find new news, and I will talk to you guys later. All right, bye.